Hello friends, my name is Ngum. Welcome to Ngum's Garden Possibilities. In this video, I am going to show you how I start my sweet bitter leaf, also known as Bayangi bitter leaf, and waterleaf seeds indoors. It's already spring, and it's time to start nursing some of these crops based on your last frostbite. That way, when it's time to plant, you have some healthy seedlings to put in the ground. If this is a video that is of interest to you, keep watching. I have a bonus tip at the end how you can propagate waterleaf seeds from established stems, so keep watching till the end. These are the things that you're going to need to plant your sweet bitter leaf. For those who don't know, sweet bitter leaf or Bayangi bitter leaf is common in West African cuisine. It's a bitter leaf that it's used for making a lot of soups and traditional soups in our culture. This is what the seeds look like. I'll put them on a white plate so you can see. This is what the sweet bitter leaf seeds look like. As you can see, the seeds are not very big, so you want to make sure that you have viable seeds from a reputable source, or if you have somebody that can send you seeds from back home, that would also be helpful. Another thing you can do is network with your fellow gardeners in your neighborhood or in your state. Ask around. There are Facebook groups where you can ask from people that have seeds and do a seed exchange. That way you get seeds. So you need your seeds. You also need some potting mix. I have some potting mix here, and obviously something to grow your sweet bitter leaf, to nurse your sweet bitter leaf in. Now you can use potting mix, but make sure that you take out the big pieces so that, as you can see, I mentioned earlier, or I showed you earlier, the seeds are very small. So the smaller the seeds, you want to make sure that the bigger pieces that are not able to, on which the seeds can't germinate, like big pieces of sticks or wood, are taken out. So we have our pre-moistened potting mix right here and a container to grow that in. All I'm going to do, because this is already moistened, is take my bitter leaf seeds and just scatter them on the top. I'm not even going to bury this because the seeds are really small, and I am heavily planting these because I'm going to thin it out eventually after they grow. So I'm starting my seeds inside. It's not yet warm yet in my zone, but if you want to plant this outside, nurse your seeds outside, I would suggest you pick an area, a small area in your garden that is nicely drained, has some sun exposure, and you can amend that soil with compost, and then just portion out a small section of your garden, till it, amend it with compost, and then scatter your seeds there. Obviously you want to do that once the temperatures are warm. We're talking about 60 and above Fahrenheit, and when you do that, you can water your seeds in and then maybe cover it with a plastic dome, so that if the rain falls or you have heavy rains or wind, then the seeds are not washed away, and then come back and check on them in about a week. So you can do that outside if you don't have a means of starting your seeds indoors or space for it. So this is what I've done. I've scattered my seeds on the pre-moistened mix, and I'm just piling them down so they actually have good contact with the soil, and that's it. I will put this on a heat mat inside, which would warm up the soil and speed up germination. I should expect germination in 7 to 10 days. But to provide or to make a makeshift greenhouse, I'll put saran wrap over this. Let me show you how I do that. Okay. So here's my saran wrap. I'm gonna cut a long enough piece that can wrap around the tray. And all I'm doing is simulating a greenhouse effect. When you put this over the heat mat, then the moisture would evaporate, but it would stay and condense back on the soil and keep the seeds moist. There you go. So there it is. all set to go on my heat mat. If you don't have a heat mat and you still want to start your seeds indoors, you can put it on a fridge or a freezer, an area in your house where you know it's really warm, and then check on it every 2 to 3 days to make sure that the soil is still moist, because if the soil dries out, then your seeds dry out and they won't germinate. So that's how you start your sweet bitter leaf seeds indoors. I'll bring you along in the process when the seedlings sprout and how I uppot them and eventually transplant them into the garden outside. Also, you want to make sure that you label your seeds when you plant them and put the date on it. So there you go. The process for starting Waterleaf from seeds inside, it's pretty much the same. We need our seed starting mix or potting mix without the big chunks, and you need your Waterleaf seeds. I'm going to show you what the seeds look like. They are much smaller compared to the sweet bitter leaf seeds. So for this one, for sure, you do not bury the seeds because they are really tiny. If you think about how Waterleaf grows in nature, this is what the plant looks like, and these are the pods from which the seeds would germinate. Once those mature in nature without intervention from humans, this pod would explode and the seeds would fall to the ground, and then the Waterleaf would germinate again. So if you're in an area where it's really warm, or back home where we don't have winter, that's how Waterleaf grows over and over from season to season. The seeds are not buried in the ground. So we want to mimic that when we're starting our seeds inside. But if you don't have seeds, like I said, there are websites from which you can buy them or network with your fellow gardeners to see about exchanging seeds with them. Now, the seeds are mixed with the pods here, but I'll bring you in real close so you can see what the seeds look like. They are really, really tiny. So the tiny black spots here are the Waterleaf seeds. That's how tiny they are. These dark spots here are the Waterleaf seeds. They are really tiny. So you definitely do not want to bury your Waterleaf seeds. Okay, since it's all mixed with the pods, I am going to crush this to make sure that the seeds are released from the pods. Or if you purchase it from someone and the seeds are separate from the pods, then you can mix it with cornmeal or with really fine sand. Some people mix it with gari, and then that will just add some volume or some weight to the seeds so that it's easy to sprinkle them on your soil. All right, so all I'm going to do is scatter my seeds. I'll crush them to make sure they are released from the pods. And I'm sowing heavily like I did with the sweet bitter leaf because I am going to transplant, thin them out and transplant individual plants eventually. Waterleaf is one of those plants that is very heat loving. If the temperatures are below 60, I would even say 65, it would not germinate. And because of the size, you do not want to just go scatter this in your garden. It's best to start it in a container where you can control where the seeds land and ensure that they germinate. In warmer zones like in Texas, most gardeners do not need to nurse Waterleaf from seed unless you just want to add to your supply, because it comes back, it's a perennial and typically comes back year after year. There you go. All I'm going to do is pat down gently to make sure that the seeds have contact with the soil. Again, I've already moistened my potting mix, so we're good to go. But if I did not, then I would gently water this after I'm done. Okay, and that's it. I would not recommend that you start your Waterleaf outside because the seeds are really tiny, can be washed away by rain or blown away by the wind. It's better to do it in a container where you can really control the seed germination process. I'll put my plant tag, and then cover. I'll put this on a heat mat to speed up germination, and within 2 weeks I should expect some germination here. If you don't have a heat mat, put it in a really warm place in your house, on a fridge, a freezer, and check on the soil frequently to ensure that it's moist. If you have access to already established waterleaf plants like this, say you buy waterleaf from the market or from someone, then you can plant waterleaf and get a faster germination rate from the mature stems. All you would do is snip off the stem, maybe pick the leaves that you want to cook, and put that in the ground. Put that in. You can plant it outside if it's already warm, above 60 degrees, because waterleaf does not like the cold. Or you can plant it inside in little pots if you have space in your house, and this should start producing new shoots and new leaves within 1 week, much faster than starting waterleaf from seed. So if you have access to already mature waterleaf stems, then you can germinate waterleaf or propagate the stems by breaking off the mature stems and just sticking it in the ground, and that will grow within a week. This is actually a plant that I brought inside from last fall, and it has been germinating inside up until now. There you have it. That's how you can propagate waterleaf from mature stems much faster than starting from seed. Once you propagate your waterleaf from stems, make sure that when you plant it outside, it has sufficient water and the ground has been amended with compost. You want to make sure that the temperatures are warm, number one. Amend your soil with compost. Make sure that your soil is draining well, and then you can plant your mature waterleaf stems outside and expect new shoots within 1 week. We're continuing with planting or nursing our African green vegetables. Here we have some Njamanjama, Jamsu. These are seeds that we prepared and preserved from last year's garden, and they just kept drying out on this mat here. This is what the seeds look like. It's already getting warmer out in my zone here, zone 4B, so I am going to nurse the seeds. So by the time it's perfect to plant, we have some healthy seedlings to plant in the ground. As usual, we have our container here with our potting mix that has already been moistened. So all I'm going to do is heavily sprinkle the seeds on here. And as they make contact with the soil or the potting mix, then they will be hydrated, rehydrated, and start to grow. So my potting mix has a little bit of warm castings to help these young seedlings to have some nourishment while they are growing. Okay, I think this is good enough. So this is another way we can preserve your Njamanjama seeds. You actually take the berries and just crush them and then dry them out, put them somewhere to dry, and once you want to plant, then you just crush your berries over the soil and the seeds will be released onto the soil. That's another way to save your seeds. So there you have it. I'm just going to press that down ever so gently so the seeds actually come into contact with the soil. An alternative to nursing your Njamanjama seeds is to find a location in your garden, and then you prepare the soil, amend it with compost, make sure it's light, well drained soil, water it well so it's moist, and then you sprinkle your seeds in a small section, and then once they sprout, you thin them out and transplant. You can do that outside when the temperatures are really warm, I would say above 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I will cover this with a saran wrap to provide some heat retention. I'll bring it into the house, and then once they sprout, I'll bring them outside into my greenhouse where I would harden them. I already have some plants outside that are hardening, and that's just to acclimate them to the temperatures and the environment that they'll have to face once they're outside.
So this is just a snippet of my greenhouse that's outside where I harden off my plants. We also planted some anchia. It's in the garden egg family, I think. It's a little bit late. It's preferable to start this 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date, but I am attempting to do it now. Better late than never. These are what the seeds look like. So we did the same thing, prepped the potting mix soil, moistened it, and put our seeds there. Tap it to make sure that it actually comes in contact with the soil, and then we'll put it inside where it's warm. Once they sprout, same process, bring it outside. The other seeds that I'm nursing are green. That's what we call it. It's Amarand Callaloo. I got it from True Love Seeds. So these are pretty easy to grow. The ones that we had in the garden last year were the wild ones, so I want the actual thing. My goodness, these seeds are so tiny. They look smaller than Waterleaf seeds. So this is what the seeds look like. Obviously, once the seeds are this tiny, you know you're not supposed to bury them. If you think of how green grows in the wild, once the seeds mature, they are pollinated, usually dispersed by the wind. So I will just sprinkle that here. Make sure they come into contact with the soil surface. Don't finish it. Let's see. I also have this other variety that has a red tinge to it. It's called the red Callaloo. I'm going to plant it on the other side here. That's what the seeds look like. Alright, again, I'll just press it down to make sure it comes in contact with the soil. And I'll bring it inside in a warm place. Typically, once you plant green in an area, it comes back year after year. I just want to plant a different variety this year. So far, these are the seeds that we've nursed and covered with a saran wrap, and we will put them in a warm place in the house. So we have 2 trays of Njamanjama here, and then we have our Amarand, and this is Anchia. So come along with me as these germinate and we eventually transplant them in the garden. They will be coming up in upcoming videos, so stay tuned for that. I hope this video was beneficial to you. If you feel like it would benefit someone else, please share the video. It is spring and there are a lot of gardeners that are starting to plant, so share the video. Also hit the like button and remember to click on the notification bell so that you'll be alerted every time we upload a new video. Please leave me a comment in the comment box below if there are any other ways in which you have learned how to successfully grow sweet bitter leaf or water leaf here in the US or even in Cameroon and in Africa. Thanks for watching. Bye friends.